Great to have you on today. I've been following your career and your background is quite impressive, and I'm excited
Thank
to
you,
dive
bro.
into your real estate journey. So, here on Investor 101, we connect with some of the top leaders in real estate from across the country to share their insights, strategies, and lessons. I'm confident today's episode is going to inspire and inform a lot of people. So, let's jump right in. Let's start with your story. Can you tell us a bit about your background and what got you into real estate? Also, what inspired you to start REI Automated?
Yeah, all right. So we're taking this all the way back to 2016, I guess. At the time, um I was active duty in the Marine Corps. I was really frugal with my money, and my squad leader actually passed me the book that most people listening to this have probably read, Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And so I read that book, and quite literally the very next month, I had a corporation and a mission to flip the United States. Like I was living in Northern Virginia, a little town called Stafford, just a little bit south of Washington D.C. And now fast forward nearly a decade later, I've done deals in 34 states. I've raised more than $10 million from private money lenders. I've built a business largely with just virtual assistants that are absolutely fantastic. That allows me to spend some time with my family. But gosh, it wasn't like that. So my story, 2016, I'm stationed in Stafford, Virginia. I'm active duty. I'm traveling all over the nation, not only the nation, but really the world, especially when I went to my next duty station in Hawaii. I literally was in like 13 different countries a year. It was tremendous. And this created a problem for me because I had two newborn kids. And like they didn't know who I was. My wife literally had to, well, first, I didn't know with either pregnancy. Like I came home with my bags in hand to find out that my wife was pregnant with both of our children, like both times, two separate, they're a year and a half apart. And and then like I would go and I'd leave, and I'd come back and she'd have to reintroduce me to my kids. They're just grown up without a dad. And so honestly, dude, I was just desperate to create a better life for myself, a better life for my family. And I have a little bit of a shiny object syndrome. So I just like started signing up for webinars and seminars and mentorships, you name it. I was just chasing the right information and the right systems, the right support. Yeah, so we started putting processes in place. I'm getting educated. I've got the right people in my corner, and I started investing remotely, right? Because I'm on this teeny tiny little island, the island of Oahu, and real estate is super expensive there. And I was really young at the time. I'm in my early 20s, and like it's just not very believable that I can go and give somebody a $1.4 million cash offer for their house. I literally got kicked out of people's houses. And so that's when I started investing virtually, and people were seeing, dude, how are you wholesaling? And I was flipping houses, stateside as well in the continental United States. And people kept on coming up to me, Keith, like, what are you doing? How are you doing this? And so to answer kind of your latter question there, what inspired me to create REI Automated, we were creating it all along, starting in 2017. It was just for my own company. It wasn't ever meant to be for other people. It was just like all of our operating systems, our processes, our documents, our software, things like this is what we were creating for my own company just out of necessity. Because I'm doing things virtually, and I was hiring other people because I only had like 1 hour per day. That's a big part of my story too. I wasn't allowed to have my phone at work. So phone goes in the box, you don't touch it for the whole day. And living in Hawaii, just think about this. Hawaii, I'm on the East Coast. It's 6 hours displaced between Eastern Standard Time and Hawaii Standard Time. And so if it's noon here, it's 6 a.m. there. I'm already getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to be, PT early in the morning before work. I was already getting up super early. So unless I want to get up at like 3 o'clock, like I can't make any calls, right? I'm not a very happy person at 3 o'clock. So I couldn't make calls before work. And then after work, I'm getting home at 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. Hawaii time. Well, try calling somebody at 6 o'clock. It's 9 on the Pacific Standard Time on the West Coast, and on the East Coast it's midnight. Like you're just gonna get cussed at. And so the only time that I really had to work on my business, there was 1 hour. That was during my lunch hour. I built Crown Properties, my business, and dude, that hour just needed to be so efficient and so effective that I could ultimately get out of the Marine Corps and spend more time with my family. So that's really the birth of REI Automated. We didn't really start until 2020, end of 2021, I think. It's maybe 2022. And then we started launching it to other people. And that's when we started adding like the education aspect as well as the support aspect now that we had other people involved.
It's amazing. I love hearing how people got like started in this industry, and your story is very inspiring. So let's dig into the next
Thanks, man.
question and see how you
Yeah.
actually evaluate the deals. So when evaluating a potential investment, what are the key factors or metrics you look at to decide if it's worth pursuing?
Hmm. There's a really good book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those habits is begin with the end in mind, right? And so the end that you and I have in mind as a real estate investor is what can I sell this house for? So ARV, we have to determine ARV, and then we just simply reverse engineer the process. So step one, it's really a three-step process. Step one is determine your ARV. So we pull comps and we're looking at, we're pulling actual comps. We're not looking at the stupid Zestimate or whatever prop streams valuation is. Like those are garbage. We're actually pulling comps. We're flipping through the pictures and choosing comps that are of like style property, similar beds, bath square footage, land square footage, and then looking at the pictures, looking at the condition. Is this true, like top of the market after repair value, or is this a hunk of junk, or like maybe it's not a hunk of junk, but it was built 30 years ago and it hasn't been renovated. And so that's step one, is we determine true ARV. And then step two, kind of gap analysis, if you will. All right, so here's the condition of my house. Here's what ARV looks like. What's this gap? Is this a $5,000 gap? Is this a $50,000 gap? And so that gap analysis is our repair estimate. So we're taking what we heard from the seller on the phone, and then what we can see the condition needs to be, and we're estimating our repairs, right? So step one, determine ARV. Step two, estimate the repairs. Then step three is structure the deal. And so this one has kind of some micro steps in it. Step three is structuring the deal. But the first part of that is like, what's going to be the best blessing to the seller? Because I can buy this cash. I can buy this subject to its existing mortgage. I could buy this with owner financing. I could buy this a hybrid of both. At the end of the day, though, if it's not helpful to the seller, they're not going to say yes. And if they don't say yes, then we don't have the deal. So step one is determine your entrance strategy of what is going to help the seller the most. Step two, now that I know what my entrance strategy is, what is the exit strategy that serves my company? Like what is the needs of the business right now? What season are we in right now? Are we in like we need to bring in cash to operate the business? When it comes to like we have a fast money first type of mentality. So we're going to look at like wholesaling and novations because those bring in cash much faster than doing a flip or a rental or something like this. Or potentially we're in like a wealth building strategy where we're going to hold on to, we're going to DSCR and we're going to owner finance this. Those would be like wealth building. We're in it for the long haul type of strategy. So we look at the entrance strategy first, then we look at the exit strategy in order to determine what our deal structure is. So that's our deal analysis process. And again, we do this all across the nation. Like, although I live in Florida, as I said, I've invested in 34 other states. So I probably won't make it to 50. There's some states that I really don't like. But like drop me anywhere in the nation and I'm going to I call this like a Mickey D's method, like McDonald's. Like think about, we were talking a little bit before geographically, where we grew up in California. Like let's talk about San Diego. You walk into a McDonald's in San Diego or Miami or Washington, D.C. or Seattle, Washington, no matter where you are in the four corners of the United States, you order a Big Mac. It's going to come out looking the same. It's going to come out smelling the same. It's going to come out tasting the same. Why? Because it's the same ingredients and it's the same process. So consistent inputs yields consistent results. And that's how your Big Mac is the same every single time. So we need to have that same mentality. Every single deal, it has the same exact process so that you can essentially have like a conveyor belt of deals. Every single deal, we're doing the same exact deal analysis on it.
Those are amazing insights. I love the example of the Big Mac. Hopefully everyone finds that, insightful
Thanks,
as
man.
well. And like you said, no matter where you invest, there's always some level of risk. Risk is always a factor in real estate. It's part of the game. How do you reduce
Yeah.
risks, especially when the market can be uncertain sometimes?
Simple. There's two factors of risk. There's probably a better word than factors. There's two elements of risk, and it's simply money and time. There is no risk void of money and time. Take out money and make it instantaneous. Is there any risk? No. No, nothing can happen. You have known constants rather than unknown variables. Unknown variables simply become like as soon as you add the element of time and as soon as you add the element of money, now it's like, well, shoot, now I don't know what's going to happen and I have something that I could potentially lose. And so we call this risk mitigation. I'm fairly risk adverse, even though I'm young. But we look at these properties and we ask ourselves, how can we lower the amount of money that we have into this? Going back to the deal structures that I was talking about before, like if I can buy something cash, okay, like that's fine. Let's say I'm looking at a property 50 cents on the dollar. Like just we'll go super easy numbers. It's worth 100 and they're wanting $50,000. Okay, dope. Like and let's say there's no repairs needed. No repairs, no arrears, no nothing like this. So I'm 50 cents on the dollar. Is that a good deal? Yes. Can I buy this with cash and it makes sense? Yes, absolutely. What would sweeten the deal though? Well, what if I got owner, let's say there's no mortgage. Let's say that I got owner financing though, and I paid them 50 or so purchase price is 50,000. I paid them $5,000 up front. And then like just to keep numbers super simple, $5,000 up front and $500 per month. So that's 45,000 divided by 500. That's 90 months. So that's 7.5 years. So $5,000 up front and $500 per month for the next 7.5 years. Now the purchase price is the same, but I've lowered my risk. Why? Because now I'm only $5,000 into the deal. Or let's talk about the other way, which is to shorten time. So we call this cash conversion cycle. For example, I'm refinancing out of a deal right now that it took far too long to renovate. It's in a very good market. It's in Syracuse, New York. And I mean, it's stellar. We're 18 cents on the dollar and we have owner financing. It's just absolutely amazing. Literally, I'll be able to cash out refinance, put about $28,000 in my pocket. I'll cash flow about $950 per month. And I'll still have about $25,000 of equity in the house after I refinance. So it's a super stellar deal. But the reason why I had to go DSCR, that actually wasn't my initial choice. That wasn't my original choice. At first, I wanted to wholesale it. Why? Because I'm shortening my cash conversion cycle and now it's only like 40 days. My average is like 40 or 42 days right now for wholesaling. Whereas think about now I have to take time, I have to raise the money for it. Then we needed to do a $15,000 renovation. Your cash conversion cycle now, and then you stick in tenants, do your DSCR in order to pull out your money. You're talking 6, 7, 8 months potentially. And then now we have risk as well because I have title. I own a house, an asset, but simply owning a house could be a liability as well. For example, this house got broken into, and I had to deal with squatters. And so, because I own this house and I have squatters, now that elongated, I think it's the right word, it elongated my cash conversion cycle and subjected me to even more risk by holding on to the house. At the end of the day, I don't regret it. It's a stellar deal still. But lower your cash amount, your cash threshold, and shorten your cash conversion cycle to shorten your time, and that will help you mitigate risk.
That's amazing advice. I talk to so many investors, but I love the way you're portraying things and really putting into details because it really puts the bigger picture. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
And,
dude, definitely.
it shows that you know how to handle many challenges, ahead of time of getting into the deal. So speaking of staying ahead, let's talk about some trends in the market. what trends or shifts do you see in the real estate market right now, and how are you adjusting your strategies to take advantage of them?
I'm gonna try to keep this not too not too political. I'm fairly abrasive and super blunt in how I talk. My intention is not to offend anybody who's going to be listening to this, but I will like radical honesty is very important to me. And also I will say like most investors inherently are capitalists, and most capitalists are going to lean red, right? So like largely most of the people who are going to listen to this are going to be happy that Trump got elected. And so prior to this, the real estate market, and again, I'm marketing everywhere. Although I've only done deals in 34 states, I do think that I'm marketing in like maybe like 45 states or something like this. And so we're analyzing deals nationwide. Oh my goodness sakes. The market has cooled off so much in the last 18, 20 months, maybe even 22 months now. And we see it absolutely everywhere. Sure, are there hot spockets? Are there hot pockets in like major metropolitan cities? Yes, absolutely. And so like, but then we look at, well, why is that happening? Well, people, for example, are fleeing states like California, Oregon, Washington, for Illinois, and where are they going? Well, they're going to Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. Just look at where are people leaving? Don't invest there. Or I mean, if you can get really good deals there. I still invest in many of these states, but where are they going? Those are the hot pockets right now, and people are like, if they're only investing there, then they have a little bit of a different picture because they're in like microeconomics rather than macroeconomics or nationwide. And so I've seen the market cool the last, I can confidently say 20 months, if not even 22 months. And really it's kind of plateaued the last several months. And I have really high hopes. You didn't ask this, but I have really high hopes of it picking back up. I think that interest rates had something to do with that. Inflationary environment had something to do with that. Um, we see a pretty significant spread between like 10-year treasury and where interest rates are. And typically this is 2 basis points between them. And we've seen this spread more and more and more over the last 12 months, really. And so one of them has to go, either the 10-year treasury has to go up or interest rates have to come down, or there's a snap, right? And whenever you have that snap, you have a correction. You have a collapse, you have a correction, whatever you want to call it. You have a bubble. There's a whole bunch of different terms. And the values of houses must come down. So there's three elements: the 10-year treasury bond, what is prime at right now, what is the interest rate, and what is the value of houses. These three things must be in harmony. And if there's not, then they create dissonance. As I was talking about, like the 10-year treasury and where prime is, there's too much dissonance because there's too much distance. They should be about 2 basis points away from each other. And so I have high hopes that the real estate market will pick up, but I don't know, and I'm not even going to pretend like I have any idea what the answer is going to be. Is Trump going to lower interest rates? I don't know. Are house prices going to fall? I don't know. Is a 10-year treasury bond going to go up? I don't know. I have no idea what it's going to look like, but hopefully it's going to be better than the last 2 years because the last 2 years have sucked.
Well, it's exciting to hear about the direction things are heading. Let's shift a bit and talk about how you're financing your deals. I know you spoke a little about that, but how do you typically finance your deals? What do you look for in a financing partner? And do you have any tips for new investors navigating financing?
I'll start with the latter question first. Tips for newer investors. So in the beginning, the first like 3 years that I was investing, I used hard money. I paid my dues. I'm paying 12% and 3 points, 4 points, whatever. And my God, it's so expensive. And you're signing paperwork that is like you have to give up your firstborn child if you default on the note. Like it's egregious. Sometimes I remember one lender, I won't throw him under the bus, but I signed the mortgage note, and I was looking at this and I had to, you have to sign personally a personal guarantee. But I was looking at this and it said that if I was like 31 days late, they could come after all assets owned by my company. And when I read that, I was like, no crap. Like, then I want to start a new company and quickly beat this house into the new company. That's outrageous. That you could come after all my assets. I don't want that. I want this to be asset-based lending on this house. You can come after this house, not all my houses. Um, However, I did the deal because I was slated to make like 100 to $150,000 on it, and I think we made just shy of 130. And so, was it worth it? Yes. Again, going back to the risk, like it's really hard to screw up a deal that you're going to make $128,000 on. You have to screw up very bad for something for you to collapse that much profit. And so I went ahead and I did the deal, but it's just so it is risky. There's a personal guarantee. They ask an arm and a leg, and they charge a bunch of interest and points. So I really disliked borrowing money from hard money lenders. However, in the beginning, I believe that it's nearly necessary. Since 2019, I think is the last time that I used a hard money lender, maybe even 2018. I've used private money. And it's so much easier. Like I even teach this. I'm really good at raising private money, and it's something that I actually really enjoy. Talking with people who are wealthy, I enjoy that. I enjoy talking to people who are sophisticated, people who I can learn from. They're affluent. And so now I just don't shut up. Like everybody knows what I do. People that I go to church with, people that I'm neighbors with, people that I have lenders that I was active duty in the Marine Corps or the Navy or the Army. They were in a military installation near me. Um, my family, my wife's family, just friends off of the internet, like groups that I'm in, masterminds and real estate investing groups. Everybody knows what I do, and I just raise private money. And so just to give you like wave top just 101, I do my pre-work, so I gather all the information. It's like, hey, the ARV, let me tell you about this deal. Real deal. Okay, I'm going to give you actual numbers. Or I need 33,000 dollars. And here's why I need $33,000. I need $33,000. I'll pay you 12%, no points. And I need it for a year, let's say. I need that much money because I'm going to buy this house for $12,000. I have $3,000 of closing costs, and I have about $12,000 of renovations and an additional $3,000 of soft costs, taxes, insurance, utilities, things like this. And I want to add a little bit of a buffer on top of that. So I'm going to borrow. I don't know where I am, but I'm just gonna borrow $33,000 if that's okay with you. And here's the deal. The deal is worth 105 to 115, but don't believe me. Like trust but verify type mentality. But don't believe me. Here's 3 CMAs by 3 different realtors, and the bottom one is 305, the top one is 325, and the middle one is 318. Okay, great. So like I don't really care if you're going to say that it's 105 or 118. Did I say 3 or did I say 1?
3.
I meant to say 1.
Oh,
105,
okay.
125, and 118.
Oh, okay.
So let's use like one of these two or in the middle of these two so that we're playing it conservative. Again, I'm running my numbers off of 105, but the median, is 118. Now, the repairs I said were $12,000. But again, don't trust me. Here's my home inspection. Here's 100 pictures and a video walkthrough. Here's the scope of work that I built off of the home inspection. And here's 3 contractor bids off of this scope of work specifically. And my scope of work is like not to be contended with. Like here's the flooring that we're going to put. Here's the description of the flooring. Here's the amount. Here's the SKU. Here's the link. Here's the price. Here's the quantity. Here's the paint. Here's the doorknobs. Here's the windows. Here's the everything. Like item by item, room by room, I built out this scope of work. I send the contractors in, and they bid labor only. They give me a labor only bid. I already know how much how much the materials are going to cost. They're just giving me the labor. And then typically I don't go with a high, I don't go with a low, I go with a mid. And so I'll put those together again. I think there's going to be $12,000, but don't believe me. Here's the scope of work, the contractor bids, the home inspection, pictures, video walkthrough, and everything like this. Here's my deal analyzer. Here's title work, clear, title companies already signed the title commitment and everything. And so I've done all the pre-work. You should have no, in my opinion, I haven't done my job. If you have any questions on this deal, it should be a review the information. And here's the thing, or when I give people my pre-work, I call this my silver platter. I'm just putting everything on the silver platter for them. When I give them this, typically they don't even go through it. Like they may go through 20 or 25% of it, but they see the level of detail and they know devil's in the details, or how you do anything is how you do everything. There's a lot of these like Marine Corps isms, if you will, that I was taught that really play into a factor of how we raise private money. So anyway, I said I was going to do 101. That was a little bit more. Maybe we got 201 there. That's how I raise the private money. That silver platter has made it really good for me to raise money privately. So I started with hard money lending. I've been doing all private money for everything that I do, except when I hold. And when I hold, then we use DSCR loans, just like everybody does. I think that answers all of your questions. That was a little bit long-winded, sorry.
It does, and that's some great advice, especially for people getting started. So thanks again for sharing.
Yeah,
So
man.
next question is, like you said, you've always been kind of dependent on technology. You've been remote, you've always lived in different places. Today you have real estate all over the nation. So technology is a huge part for you, and it's also a huge part of real estate. How has it played a role in your business? And with the rise of tech in the industry, how has technology impacted your approach to real estate investing?
Huge. When it comes to, so like almost this whole time that I've been talking about my real estate investing business. But then I'll kind of switch gears a little bit here and now talk about REI Automated because I do both. And just to like be clear, I have REI Automated, of which I'm the owner of, but then I also invest actively. And this is really my bread and butter and what we've been doing since 2016. This is fun and exciting and it's new. And we get to help a lot of people. And it's truly my heart's intention to be the person and the company that I had wished that I had when I got started 9 years ago, right? And so a lot of this is actually technology. REI Automated immensely. We have three pillars. Pillar number one is education. Pillar number two is operating system. And pillar number three is support. So education, I'll just go into this very, very briefly. We have like 285 videos where we talk about deal structure. We talk about marketing. We talk about sales and negotiation. We talk about deal analysis. We talk about raising private money. We talk about taking contract to close, KPIs, the whole shebang, right? 285 videos. That's our education pillar. And then, yeah, I'll go into operating system. This is all the tools and the resources that you need. This is the documents. This is the software that you need in order to execute pillar number one. So I'm the king of bad analogies. Let's just say pillar number one, I'm like, teach a man how to fish, right? So like, let's sit down in a classroom environment, if you will, I'm going to teach you how to fish. Pillar number two is, all right, or now that you know how to fish, here's the rod and here's the reel. Here's the tools and the resources, the software that you need in order to execute what I just taught you in pillar number one. And then pillar number three is support. Run with me with this fishing analogy really quick. Like you have the rod and the reel, you have the knowledge, you're walking down to the river, you're about to throw your line in the water to go fishing, you look over and there's a bear. Well, that bear is representative of like an obstacle that you don't know how to overcome. A question that somebody asks you, you don't know how to answer. An objection that the seller gives you that you don't know how to overcome. You don't know what to do because you've never done that. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you had somebody right there next to you who's been where you are, who knows what you're about to go through and can walk you through step by step? So that's our support pillar. Let's go back though to answer your question. Software is immense. It's tremendous because if you can codify, if you can systemize everything, again, let's go back to the Mickey D's method approach here. how it's like, hey, we're doing the same thing the same way every time. Think about Tesla, every single car looks at, well, not even Tesla, but all car manufacturers. It's all the same pieces, it's all the same components, it's the same product line, if you will. And so, for example, I want people to know how I talk to sellers because I'm good when it comes to sales, when it comes to negotiation, when it comes to building rapport, mirroring the seller, asking really good questions. I'm very good at that. And so what we did is we broke down my scripts. So we have 6 essential elements of my script, and we've built a software where the script is dynamic. And what I mean by that is as the conversation changes, the script changes as well. And so, and I can if you want me to share my screen, I'm happy, I'm thrilled. And if not, we don't have time. That's totally cool as well. You just interrupt me and tell me. But we have this script so that as the conversation changes with the seller, the script changes as well. And the reason why this is very impactful is because now I can hire a virtual assistant, but you can hire anybody. I don't mean to, if you want to keep things home based in the United States, that's fine as well. You can hire somebody who's not as highly educated, who is not as highly trained as you are. They don't need to be like some sales ninja or anything. But if you can duplicate the process of you, the owner, and your skill set or my skill set or the skill set of my mentors, if you will, and use that same script, well, now everybody has the same inputs. Therefore, you're going to get the same outputs or results. Same thing with the deal analyzer. Same exact process. Step 1, determine ARV. Step 2, estimate the repairs. Step 3, structure the deal. Perfect. We've built that into our software. We have process checklists. If we're going to wholesale a deal, if we're going to wholesale a deal, if we're going to retail a deal, if we're going to wrap a deal, if we're going to rent a deal, if we're going to novate a deal, if we're going to lease option deal, every single one of those has a checklist. And the checklist has like checklists within it. Like this task has these 4 subtasks, and the second of these subtasks has 11 more subtasks, So as you go through, you just don't skip steps. One of the things that I learned, again, kind of taking it back to my originating story, being in the Marine Corps, we would say slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so everyone here has seen some war movie where you have all the Marines or whatever, they're stacked on the door, and the breacher opens the door and one man comes in, and there's a specific way to clear a room, to clear a house. Why? Because you have your fatal funnel. As soon as you open the door, that's where people get shot. That's where you always have to have your rifle ready. And here's the thing. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. You cannot rush through the house. Otherwise, somebody's going to get shot. And if somebody gets shot, now you have to take 2 other Marines to drag his butt out of the house, render aid, take him to the medic, and you've taken now 3 Marines out of the fight. You're an idiot. Don't make mistakes because it will cost people's lives in the Marine Corps. And in real estate, if you make a mistake, nobody's going to die, but you do lose boatloads of money, right? And so there has to be a process. And this is why we have like these checklists so that we're not skipping steps. If you skip steps, you make mistakes. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. What's something else? We have a CRM. We built an amazing CRM. Again, it's the same exact thing. We have automated initial messages that engage with the seller. Speed to lead is everything, right? So we have these fundamental things that we kind of preach. Speed to lead. You have to track that. If you're not tracking it, you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So let's track our speed to lead. Let's engage that seller with some initial automated messages so that they can go back and forth. And this happens all the time. This happens all the time where a seller will come in and it's in the middle of the night. You're busy, whatever. And you can't get to them in a timely manner. So what do? Well, the automation is going to kick in. It's going to have a little short conversation, if you will, with the seller. And that's really going to do 2 things. The first is, and maybe the most important, is it's going to stop them in the tracks. And what I mean by that is they're not going to fill out other people's forms. If you think that they're just filling out your form, that's erroneous. One of the good things about Need to Sell My House Fast or motivated sellers is it really is exclusivity with your leads, right? But maybe they're not just filling out their form, they're filling out other forms on Google or whatnot. They're reaching out to other people in other forms or factors. And so what we want to do is we want to stop them in their tracks. Like, I don't want to create my competition. Pay attention to me. I'm here right now. I'm engaging them. The system is, right? Our software, our CRM is. And so it helps not create competition because we're getting to them very quickly. And then the second thing is it does is it makes them feel really special. It's like, dude, I filled out that form like 2 minutes ago. This guy's already calling me. Oh, snap. He's sending a text message right now. Like, it makes him feel special. It's like this guy just dropped everything. It's super early, it's super late, whatever time they're filling it out. He just dropped everything to take care of me. And so it buys some goodwill with the seller. So that's one of the other things that I would, highlight in our CRM. Um, this year we've spent a considerable amount of time and money building a KPI tracker. It integrates seamlessly into our CRM, and it's like the CRM is the what's the right word? Like the functionality, right? To send your text messages, we record all the calls and your calls are there. We're pushing it through the pipeline. We have communication statuses and lead statuses, follow-up statuses. And like I said, look, I mean, it's REI automated for a reason. It's because literally more than 90% of all the mundane, stupid, boring there's a word that's like munitious. Munitious is like, that's not even a word. I'm making stuff up. Mundane task. Like, you just don't like doing this stuff. More than 90% of it is automated. So that's the functional part of it. But then how I was talking earlier about, like, if you don't track and measure things, then how can it be improved? Well, we've built out an awesome, it's incredibly advanced too, a KPI tracker for you to monitor your performance or your team's performance. Really, when you get to the point where it's not just you as a solopreneur, now you're hiring a team underneath you, you can monitor your team's performance, hold them accountable to higher standards, and then optimize what they're doing. It's really, really cool. And we do that with the marketing that we use, with the sales. We're tracking speed to lead. Are people going, we call it crazy ex-girlfriend, just triple dialing, right? Call, if they don't pick up, hang up. Call again, if they don't pick up, hang up. If they don't, call a third time, if they don't pick up, leave a voicemail, send them a quick text message. So get to them really quickly, go crazy ex-girlfriend. And then the last thing that we talk about is getting big checks. And without a visual aid, just imagine here's your sales pipeline. So like, this is new leads. These are people who are interested. These are people who you sent an offer to, so on and so forth. Like, this is too elementary, but just get the idea how there's a bunch of people up here. So think about all the people who are in this lead status. Let's say there's 15. And let's say that there are 7 people here and 3 people here. Okay, cool. Every day we want to call all 15 of these people. And once you do, you get a little check. And next, we're going to call all of these people. I think I said 7. Once you've called all 7 of these people, you get a little check. And then there's 3 people down here. We want to take care of them as well. You get a little check. Well, once you get little check, little check, little check, big check. This is nothing more than consistency. People are really good at sprinting and they suck at marathons, right? So maybe they're really good at for a season, like season being defined as typically less than 30 days. People are not consistent. They can sprint, but like I've certainly coached more than 500 people now. And a big thing that I see, and like, this is objective. This is unemotional. We track their data. People are good sprinters, but they really lack with the consistency. So what we did is we added into the software, we added in this tracker of consistency. It's nothing more than a big check. Little check, little check, little check. And I'll tell you what, this is a little dopamine hit every time you do it. Like, you're going throughout your day, you're calling. As soon as you get through the 15, you get a little check. You're like, oh, sweet. I'm whatever, 2/3 of the way there. This is dope. Like, let's move on. All right, now I got two big checks. I only need 3. And then, two little checks. All I need is 3. And then I get a big check. And so, my team is held accountable to 5 big checks per week. You have to take care of every seller every day. And the moment you do that, if you get a big check, let's see if I have one here. If you get a big check every day, You will get a big check every day in the mail. Why? Because you're doing deals. Why? Because you're consistent.
Love that. Consistency is everything in this industry. People really need to understand that. And, from your background being in the Marines, that's something that you guys are taught and
Yeah.
it's something you need for life. So I agree
Yeah.
with that. And with today's tech, like AI automation, I feel like, that really helps out with the consistency part, but it's all about the person at the end of the day. So thank
Yeah.
you for
That's right.
sharing that. Um, so let's talk a little bit about how you decide where to invest. Like you said, you have investments
Mm.
all over the States. So how do you decide which markets or neighborhoods to focus on when making investment decisions? And what's your process for identifying up and coming areas?
This is a very complex question. Um, this is a really complex question. Let's see. I determine by metros. So let's just talk about, let's lay some groundwork here when it comes to like fundamentals. I don't look at cities. I don't look at states. I don't look at counties. First, I determine MSAs, which stands for Metropolitan Statistical Area. This is how we do our census reports, for example. And so currently, I'm investing in 115 MSAs, 115 metropolitan areas and metropolitan statistical areas. And the reason why I chose those 115 is because I looked at three, in my opinion, fundamental exit strategies, which is wholesale slash novation slash retail. So like, can I move this quickly? And this comes down, this is simply a function of population. Okay. If we just like break this down to uh, economics 101, supply and demand, if there's 1,000 people who live in this city versus 1 million people who live in this city, where is your house going to sell faster? Well, of course, in the one with 1 million people in the population. And so this is really good for wholesale, novation, and wholesale slash retail whenever we're flipping a property and using an agent to list on the MLS. And then I look at it from holding assets as well. And I hold two different types of assets. If you think about this, there's a divide here between short term and long term. This is a cash grab. This is building wealth, if you will. This funds this type of deal. So wholesale, novation, flipping, fix and flips, they're all going to be short term. Over here, there's two different assets that I hold. Asset number one is rental properties, and asset number two is notes, owner financing, where I am the bank. And so the largest function of this is going to be population, and the largest functions of these is going to be laws, is a legislation. And so, for example, I chose many of these 115 metropolitan areas because they have amazing rental attributes. And there's two big levers. I consider many, but there's really two. It's going to be price to rent ratio. So if you think about the 1% rule, which is so stupid and you should not operate off of the 1% rule, but this is something that like most people know what I'm talking about. And so if you can buy a house for $100,000 and it rents for $1,000, then that meets the 1% rule. This would be stupid though to pay $150,000 or $200,000 for a house if it only rents for $1,000. This is not a good price to rent ratio. And so ideally, we're buying houses that are really close to, think about this again. Let's just talk about averages. Average is average, right? So let's talk about what is the average price point of a home in America right now. I don't exactly know. Like it's been a little bit since I've researched this, but I'd say it's around 400 to 420 or so. So let's kind of be anchored there around the $400,000 mark. And then let's say that in whatever this city is, um, the average price point is 280,000. All right, dope. So we're less than national average. This is good for rent. And then let's say that in this zip code specifically, the average house is 200,000. But I look at rents and rents are 2,500. per month. And then if I can get a really good price, like 50 cents on the dollar, I'm buying an asset that is $100,000, or I'm in it all the way with repairs and everything for $100,000, and it's renting for $2,500. I mean, this is astoundingly good. So I think it's on. I have too many notebooks. I literally have one on my left and one on my right. With one that we're refinancing right now, we're gonna get 1616 is the rent. And when I cash out refinance, I'm going to pull out $65,000. Think about this. I'm all in for 65,000. If we were to think about the 1% rule, as long as I can rent it for 650 bucks, it works. I think the 1% rule is absolutely stupid. You should smash the 2% rule, if you will. And so 650, that's $1,300. Well, we're going to Section 8 it. Could we rent it for $1,300? Yes. Retail market is $1,300. But in this area, Section 8, which is government subsidized housing, is $1,616 per month. Bro, like, this is an amazing purchase price to rent ratio. So that would be the first thing. I said two things, two functions. Oh, and then legislation. Like, simply put, is this a landlord friendly state or is this a tenant friendly state? I had somebody break into one of my houses in Illinois. Yeah, last year. And dude, like, I didn't have a rental agreement. They freaking broke into my house, right? And the Marine in me is like, freaking, all right, great. Like, let's gear up. I'll fight you. And they were destroying my house. There was a water leak. They turned on the water, and I had the water turned off because I knew about this water leak. And they flooded my house with, if I remember correctly, it was 28,000 gallons of water over less than a 2-day period of time.
Wow.
The city called me, Mr. Gillispie, are you filling up a swimming pool? No, there is no swimming pool. Are you filling up your neighbor's swimming pool? No, my neighbor doesn't have a swimming pool. Well, I regret to inform you that 28,000 gallons of water has been used at your house. And I go, that house is vacant. And literally, I think it was just a couple hours later, I got a call from the sheriff. At the time, I was in the hospital, so I didn't take any action on this. Doesn't matter. I got a call from the sheriff saying, Mr. Gillespie, are you the owner of this house? Yes, I am. It looks like somebody has broken into your house. One of our deputies evicted them earlier this morning, and they had this car with this license plate. That car with that license plate is in your house, and they're unloading all their crap. So I found out the hard way. Illinois, really stupid laws, like the stupidest laws for tenant/landlord laws are horrible. They had more rights than I did. I couldn't even break into my own house. I would get arrested. Why? Because they were behind the threshold. Like, there's this threshold law. They're behind the door, and if the door can be shut, they have legal right to be in there, and I need to go through the proper, civil proceedings to kick them out. And I was like, please, I'll take the door off. I own the door. I own the house. I own the frame. Like, you don't get a door. And my attorney was like, yeah, well, if you do that, they could sue you. And I was like, fine, I'll turn off the electricity. There's a miner in the house, and if you do that and it's winter, and then they could freeze and they could sue you for that as well. And I was like, this is so stupid. This is very litigious. And so anyway, I go back to, like, what is the price to rent ratio, and then what are the laws? Like, whose side is the court going to lean to if, God forbid, something bad happens? And so that's how I look at, again, kind of as a summary of this one. We talked about wholesaling, novations, and fix and flips. I determined that market based off of, like, what is the volume? Are people moving there? Is a big thing. And then what's the volume of transactions? What is the days on market? Next is looking at it from a rental aspect. Are the laws leaning in my favor, or are the laws leaning in the tenants or the squatters' favor? How quickly does it take to evict somebody? and what is the price to rent ratio. And then the last way that I look at it is if I'm holding a note, right? I had explained how this is like the fast way, and that these two are holding assets, rentals, and notes. So we also own or finance houses. And when we do, what that just means is I'm the bank. I am the owner of the house, and I'm providing financing when I sell it to you. Now you own the house and you owe me money. And so in these cases, I'm looking at what are the laws versus mortgage or deed of trust. So there's two different types of ways that you can secure debt against a house. And depending on the state, you're either going to have a mortgage or a deed of trust. Deed of trust is going to be faster for the foreclosure process, just generally. Deed of trust is going to be faster than mortgage states. And then mortgage states, you need to know, well, is this a judicial foreclosure state or a non-judicial foreclosure state? If it's non-judicial, then typically it's pretty fast to foreclose on somebody. And if it's judicial, my gosh, you can be tied up in court literally for years trying to get somebody, foreclosed on. And so those are the things that I'm mindful of. Some additional factors that I look at, because I'm spoiled and I live in Florida, is I don't really like cold weather states. Like I don't want to have to purge the lines and like the water lines and winterize the house and prepare for snow and all of these things. I would rather not deal with those things. I do look at whether the state votes red or blue, landlord tenant, who wins, mortgage versus deed of trust, judicial versus non-judicial. Oh, and then I do have a metric that I look at whether or not it's like advised to hold long-term assets in this state. Like how are they projecting the laws to go in the near future? And I would really say that the near future is like the next 4 years, if you will.
Good to hear.
That was a big
So
answer.
that was a
That was a
great
hard question,
answer.
bro.
That I like hard answers because hard answers mean there's going to be long answers, and you get to the
Yeah.
detail, and that's the real education here. And there's a lot to learn from you and from this discussion. And like you just spoke about all your stories and your properties, especially the Chicago one, which caught my attention. Real estate isn't real estate without its challenges. How do you stay so positive, and how do you overcome these challenges, whenever they come to you?
Um, I'm not gonna turn this into like a religious preaching fest, but I'm a Christian, I'm a man of faith, and I think that when you have a higher being that you or a higher calling, if you will, that you can go to. I spend a lot of time in prayer every single morning, no matter what. I don't care what day it is. I don't care what time it is. I don't care how I feel. I go for a 1 hour walk. And in that walk, it's a 5K. I can almost exactly an hour is 3.2 miles for me. And so during that time, I kind of have a ritualistic, I do the same thing every day. Part of that is prayer and part of that is education. And so I'll typically listen to a book or a course. I told you I have a little bit of a shiny object syndrome. And so like still I'm buying new courses and listening to that. But a large portion of like my sanity comes from prayer, Bible study, my church family, if you will. We have a little men's group with 8 people, and of those 8, 6 of them are entrepreneurs. Um, my wife is a big part of that. Me and my wife have been married a little over 10 years, and dude, there's like some days where I'm flying off the hook. Like most of the time I'm pretty positive. I'd like to think that I'm good at regulating my energy. Protecting my energy is super important to me. Like, listen, I run 2 businesses that have people underneath them. If my energy is off, I'm screwing everybody. Like their energy, they cannot be on unless I am on. It's kind of like the sun and moon. Tony Robbins talks about it's the sun and the moon, where you have to be shining too bright. Like the sun is blinding in order to get people within your circle of 5 that are, directly reporting to you to shine as bright as moons. And we have to have at least moonlight. Otherwise, we have no direction. And so I'm really big with protecting my energy. My wife, I would say, is the second largest factor of this. And there's been days where I'm like flying off the hook. I'm super pissed off about something, like when this person broke into my house, and and she is really good at reminding me like this is just a season. Like all these things pass. Your trial that you're going through right now is going to become something that you learn from, you level up. Like the moment that your problem is bigger than you, this is a good thing because it's going to make or break you, and it's not. I'm not going to be broken. So now I'm going to level up, if you will, until I am bigger than my problem. And then new level, new devil, you get a bigger problem. And people are like, you know, this is a common thing where people think that money is going to solve their problems. It will never solve your problems. You just have to learn to be a bigger person, and then you have a bigger problem, and then you become a bigger person. You're constantly expanding. So God first. My wife is a big part of that. I have a coach. I'm really big into coaching slash therapy. And so my coach is an NLP coach, neuro linguistic programming coach. And like, I don't know if he has any credentials as a therapist, but he darn near, acts like one often. And I think that that's important because there's sometimes you're like, am I freaking insane right now? Sometimes I think that I'm crazy. There's other times where I have a really bleak outlook. Like just about a year ago, I was like, oh my gosh, like the United States is going to collapse. Like USD is going to go to crap. And I literally liquidated everything. I didn't have more than $2,000 in cash. Everything was in other assets. And I was really, really scared at what the future was going to look like. And just having people in your corner, I don't care if it's a coach, I don't care if it's a therapist, but you have to have people in your corner that are solid people. Like one of my, literally, it's on the page that I'm about to quote from. My coach, we had a meeting. What's today? We had a meeting about a week ago. He said, only take advice from 5 people. Only take advice from 5 people. They have to fit into this category. People who pay you, people that you pay, people who love you, people who regulate your industry, or people who are where you want to be. If they don't fit into this category, in these 5 categories, don't listen to anything that they have to say. Matter of fact, if they tell you what to do, run. Like don't listen to them because they have ulterior motives, right? They're going to benefit from you doing what they just told you to do, or they're just being boastful and they think that their way is the right way. And if they don't give you a reason to follow their direction, then you shouldn't listen to them. So having good people in those 5 categories, I think would probably be my third. I only mentioned one person, but honestly, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I have multiple people that I pay, multiple people that pay me. I have multiple people who love me, multiple people that regulate my industry, and multiple people who they are where I want to be. And when I need help, I call one of them. Hey, dude, I don't know what to do with this. I just got sued at my desk right now. I just got sued. First person that I called, he picked up. And he walked me through step by step for 2.5 hours. Like I filled pages, like I think 5 pages in my notebook. And when I got done talking with him, I called the next person on my list who got me connected with the attorney that represented me. And this lawsuit, by the way, it's already settled. It hasn't even been, dang, it's just over a month right now, but it's already settled for 5 cents on the dollar. I'm really happy about this. Why? Because I didn't lose myself and like freak out. And I got honestly an even better result than I was hoping for. And it's like, bro, I couldn't have done it without a really good support structure. And there's going to be so many ups and downs. Like if anybody tells you that real estate is easy, they're a big fat liar. And if anybody says that entrepreneurship is easy, they have not been doing it for a very long time. It's not. Like we live in a very hard industry and the market is terrible right now. And like it's really, really hard. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. And if you're constantly riding this emotional roller coaster, it's exhausting, and ultimately you're going to quit because there has to be, Tony Robbins talks about 6 essential human needs, and one of them is stability. There, and that's my lowest, by the way, of those 6 essential human needs. Stability is my lowest. But as humans, we have to have like some level of certainty. That's what it is. It's not stability. It's certainty. Is his human need is the word for it. There has to be some level of certainty of like there's hope for tomorrow type of thing. If you don't have that, dude, you're just gonna quit. And so having the right people in your corner, I think, is super essential.
I couldn't agree more. And just like you said, people say real estate is easy. You see all these gurus saying, I just made this, I did that. But we all know that real estate could be very, very competitive. How do you
Yeah.
stay ahead of other investors, and what strategies do you use to ensure you're always evolving and growing and becoming the best version of yourself in this industry?
Hmm. I'll answer the first. Your first question is easiest. How do you stay ahead of other investors? Honestly, I don't care. I feel like I'm not worried about that. That's not something that I think about. Um, I do, what do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy or something like that. There's some truth to that, but then there's also some truth to like, what is my competition? Doing some market research, knowing what you're up against, being educated. There's some truth to this as well. And ultimately, I don't know. My personality is like I don't really compare myself to other investors. I'm in. If we were to talk about like chapters of a book, uh, I will compare myself. I'm in chapter 9, if you will. If you know how many years I've been doing this. I'm in chapter 9. Well, I'm not going to compare myself to somebody who's in chapter 34 and be like, that guy's a decamillionaire. Why am I not a decamillionaire? Shut up, dude. He's been, you know, what? Literally, I have somebody in mind right now, and he's been investing as long as I've been on Earth. Like that's not appropriate to compare myself to where he is right now. He has multiple businesses. He's flourishing. He's doing amazing. And similarly, somebody who's only 2 or 3 years in shouldn't compare themselves to what I'm doing or what I have or what I want even because we're in different seasons of our life. And so that's the easiest thing. I don't really care. I don't know that I'm in front of like staying ahead of other investors. I like to think that I'm doing a good job moving into the latter portion of your question. I'm constantly growing, and the reason for that is because I'm always reading or listening to something literally every day, every single morning when I'm on this walk. And that forces growth. And it inspires me as well. Like listening to what these people are doing or their ideas or their way of thinking, their viewpoint, vantage point of the world or of a problem or something, that inspires me. And I'm like, wow. And then a lot of the times I'll find myself just walking in silence, just with my earbuds in. I'll pause my audiobook or whatever course I'm listening to, and I'll literally walk for an hour in total silence, just letting my mind stay in a state of creativity or a state of flow as I'm thinking about these things. Maybe I'll reach out to a friend or a team member and say like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can you help me flesh this out? Can you be a sounding board? What are your ideas of doing this? And those sort of things kind of get me excited. Growth is my talking about previous topic, I think it's called 6 Essential Human Needs from Tony Robbins. Growth is one of them, and growth is my highest. And so I feel terrible if I'm not growing, if I'm not consuming something that is challenging my mindset. I just feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I go through seasons, admittedly, where sometimes I'm like, I have to shut this off. I have too much noise in my head. Like I go from consuming the content to now creating the content, if you will. Like none of your questions did I know what you were going to ask. Yet I feel like I'm prepared to answer them in a fairly systematic way. Why? Because I've created content around them and I know it cold. I don't really have to think about it. I don't really have to study it. I don't have to really reference any notes or anything like this. And and so admittedly, sometimes I do have to shut out like the growth or the learning because I have too much noise in my head. And it's like, all right, let's organize this in a systematic way so that it can be duplicated by other people. Create a system. put if you can systemize something, then you should be able to automate much of it. And what you can't automate, you most definitely should delegate. Unless it's something that you really, 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 really enjoy doing and it makes money um, in your business, right? Otherwise, if you want to separate yourself as the owner of the business and not just be working in the business, well, you have to take a step up, if you will, or a step back, work on the business for a little bit, systemize it, automate as much as you can, delegate the rest of it to your team, and then go back to listening to your mentors, to listening to a book, to listening to a course. And that's how I always stay learning. I dropped my wife off at the airport today. It's an hour and 10 minutes up. It's an hour and 10 minutes back. That's 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I listened to things at 2x speed. So I got through like almost 5 hours of content in just that short period of time, where most people, they're jamming out to some music. No, I'd rather become a little bit wiser. I'd like to, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I like to consider myself like a youthful scholar. Like I love reading books and I want to hear, dude, if somebody takes the time, I mean, how long does it typically take to write a book? 1 or 2 years? If they took 1 or 2 years to take all of these thoughts and all of this wisdom that they've learned over 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of their life and put it all in 300 pages, and they have which going back to the 5 rules, they have what you want. Well, freaking shut up and listen.
Yeah, I agree. And to wrap up this interview, my last question personally for me, because I see how passionate you are about, reading and learning and, hearing from people who've done so many different things. What are some books, podcasts, songs, or anything that inspire you that our audience can start reading or hearing today?
That is the toughest question that you've asked me.
Saved it for last.
Uh, that's the toughest question that you've asked me. And the reason for that is because like all these things are coming to mind right now, but like I don't want to answer generally. And the reason for that is because like Rich Dad Poor Dad is an amazing book, but what if that's not what you need right now? And instead you need to fix your finances. Well, then read Profit First. Well, what if you don't really have a business and you're stuck just spinning your wheels? Well, then read Traction by Gino Wickman. Well, what if you don't have good principles in your business or your just decision making process? Well, then read Principles by Ray Dalio. Read The Four Agreements if you have issues making decisions. Like all these books come to mind. Here's what I will say. Find somebody. Okay, this is final answer. No, I have two final answers. Final answer number one, part one, if you will, is find somebody who is where you want to be and ask them to choose the book for you. Somebody who you can have a two-way conversation with. And what they should do is they should like really diagnose your core constraint in your life. Maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's your finances, maybe it's your spirituality, maybe it's your community, maybe it's your business, maybe whatever. Like we have all these gardens of life, if you will. And they should ask you questions to determine properly, like, where is this person? And then ask you where you want to be. Why are you not there? Diagnose your core constraint, and then give you very solid advice on what book you should listen to. Because how many books are there? Millions and millions and millions. And so it really, like, I mean, you could read a book a day for the rest of your life and you wouldn't get through even 1% of the books that are out there. So choosing the right book is really important because realistically, you like, maybe this isn't realistic for some people, but like realistically, I can only read maybe 20 or 25 books in a year and properly implement them, execute them, like, and not be doing something half-hearted. And so you have to choose those books really wisely. And then part two would be, let's get away from the books for a moment and find somebody. I'm not trying to toot my own horn in saying this, but like think about the principle in which I'm about to teach. Think about somebody who's consumed a lot of these books and they have all of this information and who can distill it down into a process go to that person, because learning from that person is a distilled version of 1,000 books, let's say. And if you can find that person, i.e., a mentor, to help you, then potentially that's even better than a singular book or even a list of, top 50 books, whatever. You can probably find a bunch of stuff. Um, but if you can find somebody who can be that for you, that distilled version, and who can give you like customized advice based off of where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go, that will be a very effective way of learning.
Thank you so much, Keith, for all the great advice, all the inspiration, for sharing your journey, from starting from nothing to doing so many great things in the real estate industry, sharing your insights, the examples, the McDonald's examples. That was really, really cool. And your energy,
Cool.
man. Since I met you, I told you your energy is very special, and I hope you stay and grow. And this energy is for sure transferred to me.
Good. Thank you,
Um,
man.
and yeah, this has been very, very valuable for me and hopefully for our audience as well. And before we
Agreed.
sign off, how can people find you or connect with you?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not really on social media. I hate social media. However, you can find me on LinkedIn, Keith Gillespie, or Facebook. I would say those are the two places that I hang out, if you will. Facebook or LinkedIn, Keith Gillespie. You can go to my website, www.reiautomated.io. That's my website, and you can find out a little bit more about what we do there.
Perfect. Thank you, Keith.
Cool. Thank you, bro.